What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. Clash of Champions 2020 is coming up this weekend, so we're going to break down the card from top to bottom, all the matches we know are happening, run down our predictions for those matches, and everything else on this preview that we normally would be doing. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me, as always, are Callum Wiggins.
Hey.
And Robert DeFelice.
My retribution name is not T-Bar.
You got to pick something that's equally got.
I just love the fact that you clearly had something in mind and you just didn't say it. You wanted to make the stupid joke straight away and just I can't commit to it.
I thought the better of it.
Well, considering T-Bar and was it Slapjack have things on Urban Dictionary that you would not want to have as your names. You know, maybe it could be like, I don't know, Dirty Sanchez or something like that, the way that some of these things are.
All we know is he's not A-Bar, he's T-Bar.
He doesn't just set Tabar, he is Tabar.
Makes me think of, T-Bor from The Simpsons. We're not talking about how awful Retribution is looking even worse and worse each and every week, but we will talk about Retribution at some point on this, because I am 100% in the camp of they are interfering in a match here, but I'm going to get into that way later on in this card because we're going to start things off with what we would normally do of what else are they going to add to the card. And I don't think we're going to add anything to this card. Now, there is one championship on the main roster that has not been booked for this, which is the 24/7 title. Yet, I mean, it's WWE. They break their own rules while they're setting the rules, like what happened with the wild card rule. 4 people, I mean 5, I mean however many. Now we got a brand extension. Now we got a brand to brand invitational, and it's only going to happen once every couple of times. Now it's once a quarter. Now it's 5 times a quarter. Now it's they just ignore things. So the idea of every championship must be defended, it's going to be, well, except for the 24/7 title if we don't want to do it. And well, it's not the NXT titles and the NXT UK titles. So I don't expect a 24/7 championship presence on this card, but if it is, it's just going to be some backstage segment with R-Truth. It's not going to be a match.
I will go out on a limb and say Akira Tozawa leaves Clash of Champions with 24/7 title.
No, I mean, I don't really care about who does it. It's just a case of somebody will probably win the 24/7 championship and R-Truth will probably win it back before the end of the night. I could see basically it appearing 2 or 3 times to break up a couple of match segments.
Is the Shark going to win, though? Because that Shark, I mean... We know that this is supposed to take place in Thunderdome. It might be in shark-infested waters as well, for all we know.
Well, it would be appropriate because WWE jumped the shark many, many years ago. So at that time, they've had one of them win the championships.
I mean, Santa Claus has been a champion. Marshmallow has been champion.
They're going to need a bigger dome.
Good movie, Jaws. If you haven't seen it, watch the movie. I don't expect
Clash of Champions.
Yeah, probably going to be a hell of a lot better of a time.
So we're going to do a fanboys review of Jaws on Sunday night?
Yeah, why not? Just talk about how when you listen to the full theme, it's less intimidating than what it is when you just get the dun dun dun. When you start getting into the do 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 do, it's a lot like, huh? That's really the Jaws theme. Different discussion for another day. Check out fanboysanonymous.com if you want more discussions like that. Obviously, that is the site that has things that are not in the pro wrestling spectrum, unless we're talking about the John Cena spinoff from the Suicide Squad. We'll talk about that later on the hot tags as well. But Fanboys Anonymous is where you'll find all that stuff. I'm working on an article that I'll post probably later today or maybe tomorrow about who should kill the Joker if somebody had the right to pull the trigger. So, pretty interesting. Starting to dive into that a little bit. So, as with anything that's going on with this, I want to know what everybody else's opinions are. Do you think the 24/7 championship will be defended? Who's going to walk out? Is it going to be in a match or just some backstage segment? Drop a comment below. Tell us your thoughts. If you're listening on one of the platforms that has no comment section, like Spotify or the brand new Amazon Music that is out there for the podcast, check that out. Or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever it is, anything other than TuneIn. Then the best thing to do is to go on the page on smarkoutmoment.com or send us a tweet at smarkoutmoment, post on the facebook.com/smarkoutmoment, put something out there on the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/the Megamaniacs, or go to the YouTube channel. And while you're there, hit the like button on the video because that helps out quite a bit. You might hear an ambulance in the background. We're going to be talking about that later on. You could also hit the subscribe button if you haven't done that already. This is going to be louder and louder. Thank you, ambulances. And
it's all part of the ambiance.
It is, yeah. We're just kind of making sure that Scott Steiner has a presence in this. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ring that little notification bell. I mentioned to hit the like button on the video, but if you feel so inclined, hit the applause button as well. That is a way to show us some support on the monetary side of things, or you can join the Facebook membership, which is essentially that version of Patreon. While I'm at it, I'll just put it out there. Patreon.com/SmarkOutMoment. If you have the spare change, you want to toss $1 our way or anything else on those different tiers to help us grow, that is greatly, greatly appreciated. And it's the best way to make sure that we do more Smark Out Moment content and Fanboys content, because there's the Fanboys Patreon too. So $10 and up gives you access to the Patreon exclusive episodes, aka the Dark Casts. There's the Pick Your Poison tier where you can request some kind of a special feature of some sorts and you want us to do a gimmick that we haven't done in a while or focus on a topic that we haven't been giving enough attention to. Take advantage of that. Mailbag priority is another thing, so we're not doing another one of those for another couple weeks. But yeah, there you go. There's a bunch of plugs out of the way. Boom. We do know that the kickoff match is going to be some match in particular here. It's going to be the Raw Women's Championship match. Asuka defending against Zelina Vega. Disappointing is one way to sum this up. Not as disappointing as some of the other things that are on this card, but this card's very yay, awesome. God, that's terrible. And all right. And this is one of those all right kind of things where they didn't put any effort into this whatsoever. Zelina Vega literally said, I want a match. And then she beat Mickie James. Mickie James, meanwhile, had one match with Asuka that ended in a way where the referee decided to just end the match because he thought that she was injured. So that was all fucked up and didn't work out the way that it was supposed to. Or if it was the way that it was supposed to, it's terrible writing. So Zelina Vega has no shot at winning this whatsoever. It's not happening.
Correct.
She's just being fed to Asuka. So why do I care? Other than the fact that it's at least not Asuka against Nia Jax or I don't know, Billie Kay or whatever. I'm glad that Zelina Vega's getting a shot. It's just a shame that they did nothing to try to make her seem credible leading up to that.
But that's the thing, though. This match has a benefit over many of the matches on the card in that we haven't seen this match before. So we don't know how good or how bad it's going to end up being. We know basically how every other match is going to go because we've seen it every single week for the past 3 or 4 months, or in one cases,
yeah. What you guys are talking about.
So at least that has an element of intrigue to it. I still don't think it'll be very good because Zelina Vega is a great character. She's not super great in the ring. She's not bad. She's, I'd say, about average, really. But she's ring rusty because she hasn't needed to be in the ring very often because she's meant to be a manager, but now she's no longer a manager and now she's having to wrestle instead, which seems like they're treading the same route they did when they decided for some reason to make Lana a wrestler rather than a manager of Rusev, which it's just going to end. It's not playing to her strengths to have her just being fed to Asuka. It just shows how, I don't want to say how the lack of depth on the Raw Women's side, because there's a lot of talent that works on there, but it's the lack of depth of the people that they want to push at this moment in time, because they're saving Bianca Belair to beat up men in skits and stuff like that.
Out of nowhere, they said this too for this. Speaking of Bianca Belair, they're like, I forget if it was Tom or if it was Byron. I think it was Byron. Was like, I for one can't wait to see what she does on Monday Night Raw going forward or whatever like that. And it's like, she's been a part of Raw since April.
Not only has she been part of the Raw since April, every single match she's had, she's beaten Zelina Vega, and Zelina Vega's the one getting the Raw Women's Championship opportunity here.
Not only has she beaten Zelina Vega, but she's destroyed Zelina Vega. No issue whatsoever, just throwing her out.
No, I mean, it's another discussion for another day to have that whole idea that you want to push somebody, so you put them on main event where nobody will watch them, and then you forget about them, so then you try to re-debut them a couple months later, which is ridiculous. But yeah, Zelina Vega is far from the number one contender, even just by the sheer nature of Natty's experience and Mickie James's experience. If somebody was going to be just awarded a match, it would have been one of those two. Now, they had Zelina win that match against Mickie, so that's technically how she won this, but it's still just weak. And it's pretty much the bare minimum that they would have possibly done to have somebody win a number one contender spot, which is, still more than we can say about some of these other ones.
Real quick, is WWE, are they having an identity crisis where they're just like, we want to go back to the 80s where everything's just fucking goofy and personality profiles? Because Raw alone, we talked about the 24/7 title with the weird shark thing, and then Bianca gets like a vignette, and we haven't even gotten to Retribution. I feel like they're in the middle of a bizarre identity crisis.
My prevailing theory is still that there's a twinge of senility to everything, and I lost control, so I want to find control, and I need to do whatever I can to get control, which means I don't want to listen to anybody because then they're going to question my control. I'm just going to spit out a bunch of ideas, and you need to tell me that it's good. Doesn't matter if it works or not. And you combine that with, wasn't it great when we used to do this? Let's do that.
That's what I think it is. I think it's...
But that's from different eras too. Like, I mean, we'll talk about how awful Retribution looks. What's the Retribution side of things? They look like Bane. A couple years ago, Dean Ambrose had a whole Bane thing going on. Someone in the creative space thinks that Bane from The Dark Knight Rises is like the shit that they should tap into, which is far many years too late.
It's almost been a decade.
Right.
Yeah.
But somebody thinks that that's like a hip thing to do right now. And it's been a couple of years since the Dean Ambrose thing, and they still think that that's the option to go with. So you got to assume that it's like, that's their pitch from then. Obviously, Roman and Brock, we went through that whole thing before where it was like, we did this a couple years ago and you didn't like it. Well, we're going to do it again. You're going to like it this time. Or, revisiting those kind of things. I think that there's, maybe it's Pritchard, maybe it's Vince, maybe it's both, maybe it's some other people. Some people, I think, really want to do the whole go back to the 80s, go back to the 90s, go back to the 2000s type of thing. I think that there's somebody out there that thinks legitimately like, hey, what's up with Ico Pro? Maybe we could do that again. Like, it's...
I just think it's providing for a very weird space where, like, I'm getting a mix of all eras, and there's no
not
continuity.
The good stuff from any of the eras.
There's zero continuity to any of it. But yeah, we're all going Asuka, right?
Oh yeah, I just think it's a lot baser than that. I think WWE for many, many years it only plays to an audience of one. And that one person is getting increasingly older and increasingly less in touch with reality. And everything that he does is either a nostalgia trip or something that he finds hilarious that he assumes everyone else must find hilarious as well.
Yeah.
So that's basically how WWE is booked nowadays.
And it doesn't matter because apparently fans have short-term memory, but they also need to remember certain things if we want them to remember it. So keep that in mind, And for something like Asuka versus Zelina Vega, I'm sure the argument is, well, we haven't seen it before, and we'll have Zelina beat a 6-time former champion in Mickie James, so that way she quote-unquote looks strong, despite the fact that her entire career she's been looking weak. And that'll be one short-term thing. Well, she won that match against Mickie, and she interrupted that match against, that Asuka had, so isn't she strong? People go, no, and they'll go, well, then just fucking deal with it at the Clash of Champions, we'll move on afterward. Like that kind of... You disagree with me? Well, fuck you then. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, so Asuka's going to retain. There's no question about it whatsoever. Unless they do some kind of bullshit just for the sake of it, where it's like that match she had with Nia Jax where they wanted to do a count out just so they could have the match again on Monday Night Raw because that's a Clash of Champions rematch. The title's on the line. Woo! That kind of thing. But
yeah, that's the caveat for every single thing of this. Most of these matches, if not all of these matches, have a logical winner based on the conditions that have gone up towards it. But because we know how WWE is operating, especially very recently in terms of their Raw stuff, everything could just happen. Like Zelina Vega could win. They could finally have Nikki Cross defeat Bayley. They could finally, I don't know, have a shark come out from the ring, eat Roman Reigns, have him become the new big dog. He's now the big shark. He runs the waters of WWE.
It's the big shark.
They go through the effort of finally trademarking the tribal chief, and it's being the tribal shark instead. It could work. He is supposed to get new gear. Maybe it's going to be all like Shark Boys.
Or they did not rehire Brock Lesnar. They rehired Shark Lesnar, and they just go with it.
I want to see Shark Lesnar now. Somebody who can draw something up and put it on like Maniacs or something.
It's the Finn.
Maybe Finn Balor. That's where they get in there.
Yeah, there should be Finn Balor. Finn Balor versus Shark Lesnar. That's like the new World Championship match.
Well, speaking of Brock
Dolphin
Lesnar,
Ziggler as well. You have Dolphin Ziggler.
There you go. That's on the outside. Is there anybody that's with like a whale side of things?
I mean, Keith Lee's the size of one.
Maybe they get Wally back. He was a commentator for a little bit. They could just call him Whale instead of Wally. Well, we talked Brock Lesnar, and the Brock Lesnar thing means that's a good transition to talk about the Brock Lesnar rule, which is officially going to become the Nikki Cross versus Bayley rule. Because for fuck's sake, they have had 30-something matches in the past 2 years. I'm done with it. I've talked about it a million times, multiple times on pay-per-view predictions, because they've had this multiple times on pay-per-views. Bayley's retaining. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you would be surprised at how many women they actually have on the SmackDown brand, because it looks like the same four all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they have completely decided to not listen to the whole Naomi deserves better trend. They have completely decided that Lacey Evans is just another woman on the roster. Tamina is Tamina, and Carmella will be the next big thing, but she's a heel, so we're going to have to wait and see what happens with her until after WrestleMania, I'm sure.
Yeah, with this, I mean, as Tony says, there's no point really deeply analysing it, because Bayley's going to retain against Nikki Cross, because Bayley always retains against Nikki Cross. The bigger question is the idea that the fact that Nikki Cross is clearly feuding with Alexa Bliss, so is Alexa Bliss going to be involved in this? Bayley is feuding with Sasha Banks. Is Sasha Banks going to get involved in this? So we don't know how exactly Bayley's going to retain, but we know Bayley is going to retain. It adds to the question why Naomi isn't the one taking on Bayley. Not even so much about the fact that everyone's clamoring for Naomi to get an opportunity. It's more about the fact, well, Naomi has a previous alliance with Sasha Banks that you can clearly add. If you want to add some element of history to that into the backstory, like Naomi sticks up for Sasha Banks because she knows her and what Bayley did was terrible, and so that leads to the feud for it. Makes so much more logical sense rather than, I don't know, we had Nikki last time, why don't we just do Nikki again? We had Nikki the last 10 times, let's do Nikki again.
They clearly, somewhere along the line with the Alexa pairing, fell in love with Nikki Cross, and they're just like, I want to see Nikki always.
Or again, it may just be like the touch of senility, as Tony says. Maybe Vince McMahon just actually forgets that Nikki Cross fought Bayley last month, and so he just decides, why not Nikki Cross? And then no one is brave enough to say that Nikki Cross fought her last time. Just moves on.
I don't even expect anything interesting to happen here. Like, they could have Alexa get involved. They could have something with Sasha returns and interferes. They could whatever. Not even that stuff would be all that interesting, but I don't even think that that's happening. I literally think it's going to be Bayley fights Nikki, Bayley beats Nikki. Tune in on SmackDown to see if we follow up with this whole Alexa Bliss thing, because Alexa was watching the match backstage. Like, that's it. I think it's going to be a complete and utter waste of time. And I wish, even though I think that Nikki Cross is better than this, I wish that it would literally start and be a roll up and that'd be the end of it. And they just cut the pay-per-view short.
Just real quick,
do it.
While we're talking about things that Tony has effectively grown tired of talking about, has anybody gotten shafted harder throughout the entire year, let alone his entire career, more than Bray Wyatt? How the hell did Bray Wyatt go from being the Universal Champion to the Challenger to not even on this show, or I don't even know what his next place on the card will ever be?
Well, I was going to say, if anyone has been shafted more, it's probably you and your fantasy team. But
Oh,
that's about it, really.
well, you know what? Bayley is holding strong, so yay, Bayley.
How's that Dabakato doing?
Not good, Tony.
but Bray Wyatt not being on this is probably. I mean, it sucks for him, but it's probably a blessing in terms of match quality at the very least. But I mean, his pairing is quite clear. He's going to be paired up with Alexa Bliss soon. Whatever he does after that is anyone's guess. But so I assume that at some point they'll pick up the Roman Reigns and his story. Maybe they're saving that for WrestleMania because they think that's such a big deal.
Even that, though, shows that there's a disparity between creative because they've got Alexa Bliss clearly as a heel, and she seems to be tied in with Bray Wyatt, who is, by all accounts, heading towards the face turn. Just doesn't seem like it's connected.
Shades of gray, guys.
Yeah, I think that they're trying to just tell the narrative that Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss eventually will just fit whatever narrative they're placed into. They'll fight bad guys. They'll fight good guys. They're
Meanwhile,
like Joker and Harley Quinn. They'll just take on anybody to cause chaos.
Meanwhile, their decision of where to go with the Braun Strowman feud was like, he's involved in Alexa and he's fighting with Bray and Roman Reigns is part of the mix. So, hey, go fuck off the Underground. You can say that teeth line a couple times.
I mean, is Braun actually part of the Raw roster now? Is Braun now part of the Raw roster?
They've never officially said it.
He's not. He's on Raw Underground.
They've also not said that he's been doing this as part of the Brand to Brand Invitational. So that just to show that they just ignore that as well. Like, he comes over and they're like, that one doesn't count. Why doesn't it count? He's a SmackDown guy on Raw. Because screw you. We wanted to do it for Monday night. Like, it's basically what it is. I don't know if there's a single company out there in the entire world that plays with its own rules as much, where it has the ability to set its own rules. And it just goes, yeah, but whatever. There's like...
I don't know if there's anybody... The people working there have to be miserable. From a creative standpoint, there's nothing about this that can be fulfilling.
Well, if you want to change it, WWE, you have my application.
Wow. Okay.
Just telling you, if you want to bring somebody in to slash and burn the place down to the ground and start a whole new... I'm not going to pull a Russo and say that all the titles have to be handed in and we have to reboot, but yeah, I'll do it. I'll be that guy.
You want to burn and slash things down? Well, I hear there's plenty of spots in Retribution going. If you want us to start doing that, probably put a Molotov cocktail into the writers' room or whatever and see what happens.
No, I'll have to talk to Seth Rollins. He knows how to burn it down. Let's talk about the Women's Tag Team Championship match. The Riott Squad is going to get a shot at Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, and I'm actually 50-50 on this. I think that there is a case to be made for both of them because the Riott Squad's one of the only actual tag teams left on the roster at this point. But Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler are the more dominant team, and I think it ultimately is going to come down to one of those, in hindsight, it was obvious type things. Are they breaking Shayna and Nia up quickly? And they wanted to do this because they thought it would be kind of funny, and then they want to move on, transitional reign type of thing. Let's move on to the Riott Squad because they're the actual tag team. Or do they have no plans for Jax and Baszler to the point where they just decide, fuck it, we'll keep it and we'll figure it out later, even if they end up switching it over to the Riott Squad down the line anyway?
Yeah, this one is really difficult, and since the predictions somewhat matter now because of the fantasy teams, I'm having a hard time with this one. But ultimately, I'm going to, against my better judgment, err on the side of common sense and say Riott Squad wins.
See, I'm doing the opposite. I'm erring on the common sense of champions advantage, the two bigger threats to the match are they're going to end up winning. It's going to be Baszler and Jax that retain.
Yeah,
Callum, what is your common sense say?
I think it's pretty obvious that Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler will retain. I don't feel the same sort of 50-50 split in my mind, just because they haven't given any sort of indication that they're not exactly friends, but they've been working together recently and they've shown no signs of disharmony in the last few weeks.
Can they break the titles? Can they, when they lose them, can they just decide no women's tag team championships and then they break them and then, okay, they're done? Because there's no teams.
I'm kind of assuming that what will happen is that Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler will eventually lose it in some sort of triple threat or fatal four-way match, just so they don't have to get pinned to lose it. So you can kind of try and keep them both strong off the back of that. Put them in a feud with each other. One of them wins. They become the next challenger for the Raw Women's Championship. We all move forward. But yeah, at the moment, I think there's no reason to have Nia and Shayna lose the belts. So I'm going to go with them.
Now, if I want to overthink things, which I do plenty of times, there's an article that I think I posted, or maybe I didn't post it yet, and it's posting later on this week or something, I forget, about early card predictions for Survivor Series. Actually, I think I did post it. I don't know. It's up on Bleacher Report if it ends up being the case. But I was running through my options for that, and I was thinking about how we don't know how this is going to play out because WWE is probably going to plan it out at the last minute. And it seems like they want to do some kind of a retribution thing, but that could really only be one match. So we have to figure out maybe are they still going to do Raw versus NXT versus SmackDown and blah, 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 blah. Point being, if they kept Raw versus NXT versus SmackDown and we do the same basic setup that we did last year, but without the titles on the line with like Brock and Ray and whatever, we have room for 2 matches for a kickoff that would make sense. One being something that they've done in the past where it's a 3-way for the NXT Cruiserweight Championship, where you just take somebody from Raw and somebody from SmackDown and they're under that 205 limit and you just have them against Santos Escobar. The other thing is the women's tag team titles, because they are a tri-branded setup. They could have, for instance, the Riott Squad against, whichever team wins this, the Riott Squad or Jackson Baszler versus an NXT team like the Spitfire Warriors that they're calling Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter now.
The what?
Spitfire Warriors. That's the name of their
All right.
song. And like a SmackDown team, and that team could be Bliss and Cross if they get back together. It could be Carmella and Naomi. It could be Dana Brooke and whoever. It doesn't really matter. They're not going to give a shit. So that's a way to get some more people on the card and do a match that's not a bigger match on the kickoff. And whoever you set up with that, you're taking 2 women from each roster away from that if that ends up being the case. Which means you still have plenty of options for the 5-on-5-on-5. I mean, if the rosters don't even change, you got Mandy, Bianca, Peyton, Billy, Mickey, Natalia, Lana, Zelina. That's already 8 options on Raw as it is. So on and so forth with the rest of them. You could get away with having either of these 2 teams win between now and Survivor Series and book them on that, and the 2 other people are in that Raw women's elimination match. Or you could even just flat out do what they've done in the past too, where they just said, it doesn't matter if you're a champion, you could be a part of that too, and just have like Jackson Baszler part on the Raw team as the women's tag team champions. Those belts just aren't even defended.
Well, you're forgetting one thing. There are 2 girls in Retribution for a reason. And I think it's an easy way to make the women's tag team titles seem like they mean something, but I can't see them running through Jax and Baszler. I can see them running through Liv and Riott.
Well, if they want to transition those belts over to Retribution, there's plenty of ways for them to get around pinning Jackson Baszler. I mean, Jackson Baszler have lost matches too. It's not like they're Goldberg. I'd be rather up for Martinez and Yim. God forbid whatever they end up calling them based off the Mace and T-Bar and Slapjack stuff. If they go with them as the next tag team champions, I would much rather prefer that than the Riott Squad to win. But I wouldn't be too shocked if the Riott Squad does win this. Even though I'm leaning towards Jackson Baszler. So ultimately my pick is Jackson Baszler, but I'm not feeling too confident in that pick.
Fair enough.
And you're going, the 2 of you are going Jackson
Riott.
Baszler for Callum, and you're going Riott Squad win, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Guess we'll see. Let's move over to one of the matches that we've seen 100 times, I think, by now. Actually, maybe not 100 times, not as much as the Bayley and Cross match, but enough times that this is not anything worth talking about. It's Bobby Lashley defending the United States title against Apollo Crews.
That is not the match I thought you were going for. But yeah, I guess that description also applies. Bobby Lashley wins.
Yep.
Yep, no point in discussing this any further.
Yeah, it's a standard rematch. It's the rematch that you're not supposed to get because we're not supposed to have rematches. Yet they didn't put any effort into this, and it could have very easily just been Ricochet, and it would have been at least maybe the slightest bit different. But they didn't care. So why do we care? It's Apollo Crews trying to win his title back. He's not going to. Bobby Lashley moves on. Next. Unfortunately, let's talk about another match that we've seen 100,000 times by now. Raw Tag Team Championship. The Street Profits could have fought anybody else other than Andrade and Angel Garza, and it wouldn't have felt as repetitive. Yet, and I counted this the other day, I lost track of the file on here. I think I put it in an article. I think it's the one that's going to be going up on eWrestling News or something. If you take Andrade and Angel Garza and Austin Theory, because he was a part of like tag team matches and stuff, but that group against Dawkins and Ford, not even including Zelina Vega versus Bianca Belair in separate matches, but that should be counted too. It's something like 14 matches since April.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking move on already.
You know what? There's the Einstein quote about insanity, and I have to believe that this has to go to Andrade and Angel Garza at some point. Otherwise, why the fuck are you doing it? So I'm going with Angel Garza and Andrade, and I'll probably be wrong, but fuck.
I'm going with them as well because of the same kind of philosophy of even a stuck clock on the wall is right 2 times a day. It just, and then, at some point, the Street Profits have beaten Andrade and Angel Garza basically 14 times. I mean, there's been some singles matches that have gone the other way, but it hasn't even been all that much in that direction. Just switch the titles already, or if not, knock it the fuck off. It should have happened a long time ago. I mean, we've been talking about this feud since April. Actually, since I think it was a little bit like into March or something if they started that. But for God's sake, just do something different. They could have gone with Dominic and Humberto Carrillo. I don't like Carrillo all that much, but it would have been a little bit different. They could have gone with Rollins and Murphy. We've seen it, but hey, we haven't seen it as often as we... Because Andrade and Garza had, I think, 3 matches this month against the Street Profits. 2 of them for the titles, I think. So it's like you're literally repeating yourselves week to week now. Not even like you're giving yourself a week-long break or something. Like, God, it's terrible. And they wonder why the ratings don't go up. Well, shit, how many times are you going to watch the same rerun?
It's got to be them, right? Callum, are you like feeling that as well? Or are you just like so checked out that obviously it's the Street Profits because nobody cares?
Well, it's not a case of like just because nobody cares it's the Street Profits, but I think it will be the Street Profits winning just because I think that they'll either drop the titles to 2 of the members of the Hurt Business or 2 of the members of Retribution. They won't give it to Andrade and Angel Garza because there's no babyface teams for them to really feud with outside of the Mysterios on the side of things because the Viking Raiders are dead for a considerable period of time. And they don't really have any other teams that can fill that void in. So unless we want to see a load of Andrade and Angel Garza, at least it'll be different, but it will come repetitive week after week, seeing Andrade and Angel Garza against some form of Dominic Mysterio, Rey Mysterio, and Humberto Carrillo. Then you should have the Street Profits win, and then you'll probably have a situation where one of the Hurt Business and Retribution win, and then they start feuding with each other over the titles, because that's what they're doing right now anyway.
They could have just merged the belts.
They could have. I mean, the best case scenario would have been to give it to the Hurt Business, because they are one of the best things going on right now. And you put Cedric and Shelton in the match against these 2 and have them win. Awesome. I'd be all for it. But no,
I'm less confident with this one than I am even with like the Nia Jax or Shayna Baszler thing. I think that because it's one of those ones where it doesn't matter, so they could give the titles to Andrade and Angel Garza, and so nothing really changes. But I'll just go with the Street Profits because why break the habit of a lifetime?
See, that's the thing is with WWE, you never know what's going on until after you know what already happened because of how
that used to be a good thing, and now it's not.
Yeah, I mean it's insanity because it's hard to judge when things change literally as the show is going on. And if you look at the direction of Andrade and Angel Garza, these 2 have been feuding with each other and teasing a split up for months.
It's so, again, as surprise, WWE, it's totally illogical. In the sense that they've suddenly like found themselves back on the same page once they've kicked Zelina to the curb. Like the complete opposite of what got Andrade over in the first place was having a manager to do a lot of the work that he would end up doing.
But that's kind of another reason why I think they might win, is to, for some ass backwards reason, be like, aha, see, it was you that was holding us back, even though you just wanted us to get along. And
so you saying that the storyline is eventually, women?
Yeah.
And that's like that.
I think it's.
I mean, I'm not saying that's out of the question. That's why I'm unsure about it. But I still think it'll be the Street Profits, just because in my mind I want some element of logic, even though there's nothing there for me to salvage in that regard.
I think there's not only a chance that that's what their goal is. I also think that they have no plan of what to do after that literal moment. Like, wouldn't it be fun if we had Garza and Andrade backstage and Zelina's like, you finally won the titles? And they're like, yeah, we didn't need you. And they walk away and then they go, okay, well then what direction do we go with the tag titles? And they go, I don't fucking know. Go give me a coffee. That kind of thing. Just sort of like, then they're going to be spending the month of October not knowing what to do. And then if they decide that they want to switch those tag titles at the last minute, they switch it at the last minute before Survivor Series. And that's just how it goes,
I hate this.
I could see that being the case. But just the same, I could see them being like, well, why don't we have the Street Profits retain? Because they're doing good as they are, and they're fun, and we'll have a fun babyface act. They have the longest title reign from any tag team in 8 years, other than
outside
the New Day. Yeah. Like, they've been doing a hell of a long title reign, and it could end at any moment and not seem like they had a shitty reign. It's just unfortunate that their reign was literally fighting the same tag team.
Are they the number 3 behind New Day and Demolition?
I don't think that they're fully
Not of all time.
at that. I think that the other tag team, if I remember correctly, was something like Team Hell No or something like that, where because
other teams held it considerably longer than the Street
Okay,
Profits.
I mean, I would hope so.
I mean, Street Profits have held it since like February, right? That's when they won it. So it's about it's a good period of time. It's a good like 6 to 8 months or whatever. But the other teams held it. I know there are at least like a few teams that held it longer than a year.
Never minding Demolition, because I forgot this lineage starts with Angle and Benoit. They're behind Miz and Morrison, Team Hell No, the Colognes, and London and Kendrick, and then the New Day. So they still got a ways to go, but not that much. Like, if we keep going here, we could be talking about, like, it's Street Profits and New Day.
And that's a possibility.
Insane.
I mean,
that's insane. They fought 2 teams.
Yeah, it's the type of situation where we're not going to know until we know, which, I mean, sounds like a cop-out, but it's not. It's just a matter of literally if Vince McMahon this week is like, wouldn't it be fun to put the belts on the other team? They could do it. Or they could just say, it doesn't matter if we've done this 100,000 times. We'll do it again and again and again and again and again and again and again.
We do our best with these discussions to actually have a discussion. But this is one of those matches and one of those shows, quite frankly, that really feels like, God, they're slapping us in the face for caring.
Right. And you shouldn't sign up for the network and buy it.
But also, like, why aren't you supporting? And
because of this, like, it's just kind of like the same thing with the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match. Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura against the Lucha House Party. We've seen them fight enough times that I think the past 3 pay-per-views I've had in my notes, well, if the tag titles are on the line, it's going to be this match because it's gone on long enough that they should have this match. And then it just becomes another pay-per-view and another one and another one. Like, they've beaten the Lucha House Party over and over and over again. They shouldn't be fighting them anymore. Yet, here we are. Cesaro and Nakamura. Good.
It's got to be Nakamura and Cesaro, unless they think it's funny that, hey, look, they're infighting too, and they actually they won the belts because Kalisto's the leader and he's a heel now, and I love tag team wrestling and I just don't care. Like, Cesaro and Nakamura is my pick, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
it would be quite funny in like the worst possible sense if they were to build give the titles to Andrade and Angel Garza and give the titles to the Lucha House Party, and because they're all infighting with each other, then you get Survivor Series, and then you just switch partners halfway through. So it just becomes Andrade and Grand Metalik against Angel Garza and Kalisto for the titles or whatever, and then it's just
okay. He's got a point.
But yeah, this match has got to be Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura to continue the story of the Lucha House Party disintegrating by having them fight about which two of the three are actually going to fight for the titles. You'll probably end up being Kalisto and Lince Dorado, because I think they won a tag team match against Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura a little while ago, so that's their logic behind it. But then there's some infighting. Grand Metalik gets Kalisto starts getting very big headed. Grand Metalik calls him out. Dorado gets rolled up or something. They retain, and then they start fighting, and then you end up with essentially Kalisto and Grand Metalik feuding, and Lince Dorado just ending up deciding which side of it he's going to end up on.
I think Lince is the one that's been feuding more, though. It might be Grand Metalik that just leaves the company.
It's been Lince and Kalisto arguing with each other, and Grand Metalik being like, "The fuck, guys."
The only good thing about this angle was Lince asking Kalisto while he was off, "What kind of good lucha things did you see?" I have a question. Has it been 6 weeks since Kofi's been injured? Can Kofi and Xavier come back and save these titles, please?
Well, Xavier can't come back.
Why not?
He's been pretty injured for a while.
Yeah, but it's been like a year.
Yeah, long road to recovery.
Injuries don't just okay. I've hit a year, so I'm perfectly fine now.
He's got to be somewhat good to go. He said he wants to come back before they're out of Thunderdome. So,
from what I've at least heard from about Kofi's one, that injury was pretty long term and he's pretty banged up. So he might decide to just take this opportunity to take some time off for a while.
I thought Kofi's injury was more just like, hey, I want time off, and like I'm generally banged up. Not like anything specific.
Yeah, but that's like 10, 15 years of being banged up without really taking a significant amount of time off. So
I just want a tag team that people care about, Callum.
Oh yeah, I want a tag team people care about as well. But in order to do that, you also need a creative team that cares about booking tag team wrestling, and they don't. So who really gives a shit?
Well, first you have to have a creative team that cares about booking.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like a whole nother universe of things that you have to. There's so many chain reactions until we get like a company that cares about tag team wrestling.
Yeah. So it's going to be Cesaro Nakamura, I'm pretty sure. If they go with the goof of Lucha House Party wins, then it'll be Kalisto and Lince Dorado somehow finding a way to win. And then are they going to get along even though they've been friends all this time? I don't know. That's the one story we can tell about tag teams.
Yeah.
Not a big fan.
Nope.
But I am a fan of the merchandise shops, TeePublic and Redbubble. Check them out. There's a shop for Smark Moment, a shop for Fanboys Anonymous, and a shop for A Mango Tees. So if you are a fan of any of the designs and you want to slap those on any of those products that we have for the options that are available, go ahead and pick it up, because those coins and dollars and credits and whatever money you use, I don't know where you're buying it from, but whatever it is awesome, because that helps us grow the channel and gives me more time to be able to dedicate to these things. So if you want to help out Fanboys and you want to help out Smark Moment, and you don't want to take advantage of the Patreon or things like that, you want something tangible for it, merchandise shops are the way to go. Let's go with the ladder match here. Triple threat for the Intercontinental Championship match. For the Intercontinental Championship belt, not the match. They're going to have a triple threat match for the match. AJ Styles and Sami Zayn and Jeff Hardy. Who is the real Intercontinental Champion? We all know that it's Jeff Hardy, but according to Styles, he shouldn't have lost it because Jeff Hardy had used a knee brace. And according to Sami Zayn, well, AJ Styles was never the champion because Sami Zayn never lost it. So, yeah, how do you one up the ladder match from WrestleMania 10 where two people think that they're the champion? Three people are the champion. It'd be funny if we had three belts. That'd be great.
I think this has been one of the best stories they've told on the road to this pay-per-view.
I'm digging it. I think it's going to be one of the best matches of the night. I like all three guys, so whoever wins, I'm going to be happy with. Ultimately, I'm going Jeff Hardy, though. I think that it's a little too soon for him to drop the title, and they haven't really tapped into that as much. Whereas if we go back to Styles or Zayn, we're just taking a step backwards.
It's Zayn. I gotta go with Zayn. Like Hardy and AJ are battling atop the ladder. They reach for it. It drops into the arms of Sami Zayn, and he runs around saying, "I told you I never lost the belt. Haha, I win."
Yeah, this should be a fun match. I'm kind of burnt out a little bit on ladder matches because WWE seems like they've done about a dozen of them this year so far. Just seems to be the go-to gimmick match at this point in time. But at least these three guys will like do some good actual wrestling in between the dangerous ladder spots. It's good to have just a triple threat rather than having like 6 or 7 or 8 people in the ring at the same time, just doing spot after spot. So this is going to have a bit more story to it.
You ever think we get to a point where the triple threat is like a calm scenario compared to the norm?
And I agree with Rob. I think Sami Zayn will win back the championship here. I think Jeff Hardy was just a bit of a stopgap. Obviously, Zayn coming back now, I think they'll just, it's sort of a case of just resetting back to what it previously was. You obviously have a feud going forward with Sami Zayn and Jeff Hardy over the championship. I think AJ will probably move towards maybe turning babyface and going after Roman at some point. But right now, I think give it to Zayn. Eventually, Daniel Bryan will be back. He might be able to pick up that feud at some point because Bryan probably should have won the title anyway if this COVID situation hadn't happened. And yeah, I think it makes, I don't say it makes the most sense, but I think there's only so much you can really do with Jeff Hardy in the title going forward. I mean, who's going to lose it to? Just call like him versus King Corbin, him versus Sheamus again. Like, there's not really many other options for him. It's more stronger on the babyface side. You can have Sami Zayn lose to Big E eventually, so that would make more sense to me.
I'd rather Sami Zayn win and have the option of dropping it to Riddle or Big E or Daniel Bryan or, you know, like any of those kind of things. I'd rather that be the case because I also think that opens up Jeff Hardy to fight Roman Reigns at something like TLC. But that's far enough away that I just figured draft, who knows, you know?
Yeah.
Plus the fact that I have Jeff Hardy as my fantasy league guy, like, you better not drop that title, goddammit.
Listen, at least it's fun. I'm more looking forward to this than anything almost anything on the card. There's one other match I'm looking forward to more.
Let's move on to the Universal Championship match. Roman Reigns against Jay Uso. This is fun. Not only do we get to see Jay Uso in a singles role, which is different that we haven't seen, he gets to fight Roman Reigns, what we haven't seen before. It's somebody different that we haven't seen 1,000 times. This is what I would like to see during this whole, we have a limited amount of people. What do we do with? You build stars. You make Jey Uso look better. You have him in a match that you wouldn't expect, and you make it seem like that's a big deal because it's the cousins against each other. That's proper storytelling. That's fun. It's interesting. Instead of just saying, no, do that thing again and again and again and again.
I'm surprised that they have not taken more chances like this in an era where you literally have no live crowd to try to dictate the narrative and you can tell whatever story you want. I'm surprised that it took us this long to get to a match that not only have we never seen before, but we'll likely never see it again. And it's just so different and it's awesome. This has been the most fun thing across WWE all summer long.
So I am looking forward to the match just because it is fresh and different. Jey Uso looks motivated. Roman is doing some of the best work he's ever done. You've got Paul Heyman in the corner. It's all just great. This is such a B pay-per-view main event, though.
Oh, it is. I mean, it's not WrestleMania.
There is zero jeopardy in this match whatsoever. Everyone knows what the result is going into it. So your only hope is that the match is good. And that's, for a B show like this, it's totally fine. Overall, it's highly concerning about the fact that there really doesn't seem like, I know he's just won the title, but there's really nobody on SmackDown's roster that you can really envision right now taking that title away from Roman Reigns. So you know he's in for a long reign. You know this reign is lasting until WrestleMania anyway. It takes a lot of jeopardy away from Roman Reigns' matches. The only hope is, oh, this match was fun, or this match was good, or they're given a slightly different opponent. Like you say, they've built other people up from that. But knowing that essentially Roman's holding this title until WrestleMania, nothing's going to change that unless he decides that the COVID situation gets a lot worse and he has to leave again. That's kind of about it, really. So I will look forward to the match, and I hope that it will be a lot of fun. But it's not going to move the needle, I don't think, in any way.
No, I mean, this is a B-level thing, but it's a B-level pay-per-view. Look at how they've treated some of the other matches on the card, the Nikki Cross thing and whatever. Like, they clearly don't care. So this is the fun way of not caring, where
this is an infinitely better way of like approaching a B pay-per-view. Like, every B pay-per-view should just be a load of, like, I would say random matches, but a load of just matches we haven't seen before, and just see what catches fire. And maybe if something's good, then you can make it like an A show feud.
Right.
But yeah, so this is a definitely better way of doing it. It's just not going. It's hard to get super invested in any Roman Reigns matches when you know the outcome before even the bell even goes at this point.
Obviously, we're all going Jay Uso winning, right?
Yeah, well, clearly. I mean,
well, he's on my fantasy team, so like, no, he'll be gone by my fantasy team by the time that this show takes place. So
I would take infinite number of storylines like this over a lot of the matches we've just talked about. I don't want to ever see some of them again. This story, I hope, continues in some way. Maybe not with Jay Uso, but just Roman going through his family in some shape or form. And I'm excited to see Roman's new look. He said he's wrestling shirtless. I don't know if that means he's, also going to change the bottom half of his gear. He said new music is coming. I don't think it'll be ready for Sunday, but new music's coming, new look is coming. This is exciting.
I'm hoping that they kind of bridge the gap between this Roman and the Liaki type stuff, and do, like, since he's called the tribal chief, like, incorporate some of those elements into there. It'd be kind of fun. Kind of cool. Cool plus fun. Roman Reigns obviously winning here. No questions about that whatsoever, but I think that this is fun. And if it's a squash match, better for Roman. If it's not, hey, look at that. Jey Uso gets to fight a little bit. Cool. Here's where we get to the main event. WWE Championship ambulance match. Gonna sell some toys here for that Wreckin' Slambulance thing. Drew McIntyre defending against Randy Orton. This will be a no contest. I am so certain that this is going to be a draw. Of course, now the fact that I'm saying I'm so certain, I'm probably going to jinx myself, but
Did you say that for SummerSlam?
I think that this is going to be a scenario where they incorporated that whole Retribution thing and Drew McIntyre leading the charge against them, specifically to set up the idea that Retribution attacks, they both end up in an ambulance. That's how the pay-per-view ends with, oh my God, they both went into an ambulance. How's this going to tune in to Raw? Whatever, figure that out. Like, I think that that's their game. Both of the opponents in this match end in an ambulance, so it's a draw, so the title doesn't change hands. Randy Orton can say that he was going to win the match. Drew McIntyre can say that he was going to win the match. You two need to settle the score in the Hell in a Cell, and they just drag it out an extra month.
So I see this happening. I see Retribution getting involved, but they'll only attack Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton will win the title, because Randy was very clear to his focus is clearly on Drew McIntyre. He doesn't give a fuck what Retribution are doing. And Retribution seemingly, because they've never attacked him, they don't seem to care what he's doing either. So McIntyre will pay, well, he'll get his Retribution, for essentially leading the attack and chasing them away from the previous episode. They'll put him in an ambulance. Randy Orton win the title that way. And then you move forward to Drew McIntyre versus T-Bar inside Hell in a
Cell. Shouldn't Retribution want to beat the crap out of Randy because their whole issue is capitalism, and isn't Randy one of the highest paid stars on the roster? But never, that little bit of logic aside, I think McIntyre's got it won. He opens the ambulance. Oh my God, it's Retribution. And they jump McIntyre, put him in the ambulance. Randy wins, and he'll fight Keith Lee at Hell in a Cell. Hopefully he keeps that belt till Mania and does the bit with Edge. But I think Randy wins here.
Well, I hope not for my fantasy league team. If it ends up being that Drew McIntyre and Jeff Hardy drop their titles, I'm fucked. But
Yeah.
as long as it tells as long as it tells a good story and I don't have to write up the same 1,000 articles that I do with like the Nikki Cross and stuff like that, then ultimately I don't care if my fantasy team loses. But like I want something good to come out of this. I don't want to walk out of this the same way that I've walked out of a lot of the recent pay-per-views where I'm just annoyed and I don't want to see what's happening next. And then Raw comes and it ends up being even more annoying. Just give me something good, WWE. And also, don't put the title on Orton unless you know for a fact that Edge is coming back and you could do that match.
Well, you can always make him transitional and put it on Lee if they change their mind. Lee versus T-Bar. Remember all the great matches they had? T-Bar?
T-Bar.
I think we're all into a situation where Orton wins the title, he'll feud with Lee for a little while, he'll find someone else to feud with in the time being, maybe Mysterio or something. And then I think that Edge will be ready for the Royal Rumble, and that's where he drops the title to Edge. And then Edge fights someone else at WrestleMania.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, I'm stuck on T-Bar because this is so bad.
Imagine being Dominic Dijakovic and they're like, hey, we really like your work at NXT. We're going to bring you up to the main roster. And he's like, oh, fucking sweet. I finally get to do that. You're going to put me in feuds with like Randy Orton and like, Drew McIntyre for the title and everything. They're like, yeah, we'll see. Like we still have to figure out some plans and stuff like that. We might repackage you a little bit. I mean, Dominic Dijakovic is a little bit of a, it's a mouthful, and we totally like it when people are just one word. So it ends up being Dijakovic or Dijak or whatever. We might go in that direction. He's like, okay, I could deal with a name change. And they're like, huh. All right, we're going to put a pin in that. They come around him a little bit later on. So you're T-Bar. Remember you said you wanted a name change. You were okay with that, huh?
I don't... Well, we'll talk a little bit more about this on the hot tags, I'm sure, but I don't hate it. I just hate that, like, it feels like it's a 1980s angle to go up against Hogan, and none of the circumstances right now say that we have those players that can pull off that angle. It just looks cheesy and hokey, and you named the guy Slapjack, and I don't understand.
It sounds very was the Disciples of the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
That sounds very much
Skull
like
and 8-Ball and chains and T-Bar and mace.
Yeah. I think certain people have said it on like social media and stuff like that best. Like, can you imagine the WrestleMania main event being Roman Reigns versus Slapjack?
Right.
No. So why do you name someone to give someone that name?
I think some other people have summed it up well by saying these sound like they could be villains or characters from either Power Rangers or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
And they look like it too.
Like, couldn't you imagine it being like you've got Casey Jones and you've got Bebop and Rocksteady and Slapjack and whatever. Like,
and Mace.
Yeah, like T-Bar could totally be some Power Rangers villain that Rita is like, make my T-Bar monster grow, and it's like this literal bar made out of teas or something like that.
I'd say that you'd have it's worse than that. It'd be like some sort of shitty knockoff of the Power Rangers would have those names like that instead.
Power Group or like.
It's like the Power Rangers, but the really later series of Power Rangers where just like nobody's really watching anymore, but you still think that there's some value in the brand, so you just keep it going.
It's like Wild Dino
like
Ninjas.
Yeah.
You ever get those toys back in the day? Like, I was a big Power Rangers fan, where my grandparents wouldn't know what the hell anything was, so they'd come across something at like some dollar store that looks just like that. It's a knockoff, and it's called like Ranger Twins or like
Power Group Ranger Force or something.
Yeah, some kind of bullshit like that, and you're like, yeah, why is there an orange Ranger, and why is there That's what this is. This is when somebody said the Shield was cool. They were wearing all black and stuff. Maybe we do something with that. And somebody else is like, can I do my Bane thing? And then they're like, oh, God damn it. All right, fine. Do the Bane thing. And he's like, Mace. I like Mace. You're just kind of. Hey, Dio, you wanted to be a wrestler, didn't you? Well, you're going to have to slap this thing on your face and call yourself Mace. And Shane Thorne's like, can I be back on the Raw roster? And they're like, shut up, Slapjack. Awful. This pay-per-view ends and we got T-Bar as champion. Might as well.
Yeah, well, the reality is, in some way, you could end up with T-Bar versus Otis for some championship at WrestleMania.
Just do it. Why not? At a certain point, things have to just burn down, like I said. For the record, if you hire me to creative, that's not what I want to do. I'm joking. God.
So it's only a matter of time before Keith Lee makes him see the light, and they inevitably form the tag team of a Lee Bar. So, like, we're working on borrowed time here.
We need to establish what the T and T-Bar stands for. What, you know what? Why don't we just talk about this? Because what the hell? We've gone down in this road. Why don't we take it away from the hot tags? What the hell is T-Bar supposed to be?
Like, I don't know.
I've heard of, like, obviously, like, crowbar, and I've heard of, like an L-beam or an I-beam or, like, some different kind of things, like, construction-wise. I have never heard of a T-bar before, and when you go on Urban Dictionary, it just says that it means thong. They couldn't possibly have said, I want to name myself Thong. So what is T-Bar? Like, drop a comment below. Tell me what you think T-Bar is supposed to be. He's not posing like a T, where it's like he's trying to stop things and he's like a bar made out of the letter T or something. I don't know. Like, what is T-Bar? He has no T in his name to call himself T-Bar, like T-Bone. That typical nickname type thing. Dominic Dijakovic. How do you get T-Bar out of that? Like,
because the alternative was D-bag.
That would have been better. At least he's got D in his name. Good old double D, D-bag. You know, why not? Awful. Anyway, that's Clash of Champions Gold Rush, because whoever is in charge of these creative things really likes subtitles right now.
It's all really weird. Like, this is what I'm saying. It feels like they don't know where they are. They think they're in the 80s 1 minute and the mid 2000s the next, and then the new generation era. It doesn't make any sense, but let's just go with it.
One final. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, at least Gold Rush feels appropriate because every single match was pretty much rushed at the very much end of it.
There you go.
Hey, we rushed to make these number one contenders for these titles. Let's do it.
It's a Gold Rush.
One final round of predictions here, since every pay-per-view at this point is getting some kind of subtitle. Before they announce what the Hell in a Cell subtitle is, what do you think it's going to be?
Heck on the deck. They're going to do it in a boat.
Oh, God. The Ninth Circle or some stupid shit like that.
Maybe they'll bathe it all in red and they'll call it the Fire Dome instead of the Thunder Dome.
The Fire Pit.
Yeah, the Fire Pit. The Fire Pit and the Thunder Dome. There we go.
I would not be surprised if it's the Fire Pit.
You know, since it's the last thing with the Thunderdome, maybe they go with something like Lightning Strikes Twice, and that's why there's 2 Hell in a Cell matches on the card.
Oh, it's so bad.
Or maybe it's just Fury Road. Maybe they just go full blown like that. I don't know.
But who is really into Mad Max right now?
What's that?
Who's really into Mad Max right now? What's going on in that company? That's just like, we got T-Bone, T-Bar, and they look like they're Mad Max guys, and we're in Thunderdome. And who watched the Mad Max movies and decided that this is what wrestling needed to be?
On some flight from New York, from Connecticut to Florida, Vince was like, I got to do something. So he just put on Fury Road, and we're going to end up getting all sorts of different things with that. We're going to get some character named Furiosa, but they're going to spell it with like 2 R's, so that way they could trademark it like the core. Awful. Anyway, that's what we got for the preview. Obviously, the pay-per-view point will continue with the actual coverage of the pay-per-view this weekend. Sunday night when it's happening, so you'll have live results on the website. I'll have reviews and posts and all sorts of different things up afterward on different platforms like Bleacher Report and eWrestling News. And after we get done with the pay-per-view, we'll be hopping on for another call and doing another podcast for the pay-per-view point post show, where we're going to recap everything that happens, talk about how awful most of it was, and run down that, review that, and move on, carry on to the next thing. And then next week, we've got TakeOver. They haven't done a whole lot to build that, but tonight we're getting NXT again, so we're going to find out more than at least one of the matches. We know it's going to be Damian Priest against Johnny Gargano, because why not? Johnny Gargano said, I want to win that title. And they went, all right. And there you go. There's your build to that. And we're going to get a number one contenders battle royal. So next week, we're going to do our usual preview for that event, which doesn't have an actual subtitle yet. It's just NXT TakeOver, and they're going to probably announce it at the last minute, make me change a whole bunch of things. But whatever it is, we will be doing. So we hope that you enjoy it, and we hope that you follow along with all the things we got going on here, and you follow all the other things we do outside of this as well. So to pass the baton over for the plugs and tell you guys what else you should be checking, here you go, Callum. Go ahead.
Okay, so you can check out all the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast, which is the series we do every Saturday, where me and Rob go back to the year 2002. We check out every single episode of SmackDown that Paul Heyman was writing for, and do a little bit of reviews and all that great stuff. And if you like other retro reviews, then we do a Patreon exclusive version where we go back in time and look at all the 2002 pay-per-views. So Unforgiven 2002 was the most recent one that got up there. So if you're at the $10 tier, then if you're at that level, then you can access it and make sure you just complete the whole journey with us. There is all the great content on the Smark website, including the power rankings, which I contribute on a weekly basis, but make sure you check out all the other weekly articles. If you want to keep up with the Fantasy League, there's a specific article on the website for that as well. You can see all the latest scores, all the latest teams. If you want to know what the rules are, because sometimes people forget about them, including myself from time to time. And so I also make sure that there's weekly updates in the Mega Maniacs as well, so you can always be up to speed on who's doing well and why Rob is doing so badly. And then other than that, you can follow me on Twitter at WeekMeister14, and that's it from me.
Yeah, I am doing pretty badly, and my edition of DK did not go as I thought it would. I would have been better off with Donkey Kong. Check out the 2002 Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast. I want to go back to 2002 sometimes and just stay there. But since I can't do that, you should also check me out on WrestleZone.com and Fightful.com. Maybe check out Fightful's Wednesday Night War podcast. I might be doing more over there with them, and just continue clicking around and supporting. I'm on Twitter at DudeFelice, and I will see you guys on Sunday.
You can follow me at Tony Mango and at A Mango Tree, and obviously with everything else that's happening on Smark Moment and Fanboys Anonymous. Way too many things going on, spinning lots of plates, but hopefully they won't all fall. And if they do, you can help me pick up the pieces. That's maybe some way to look at that. But we've got the hot tags coming up next, so stay tuned for that. We'll talk about the WWE wines. Yes, that's a thing. And Peacemaker and anything else that happens throughout the week. Hopefully nothing as bad as the unfortunate news about Road Warrior Animal, but we'll address that as well. That's happening Friday night, and we'll see you then. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.